I was told by a stranger, a broken, beat-down stranger, that I was lost in my anger. Oh, and not a moment passes that don't make me anxious. I want to make you happy. I want to make you happy. That don't make me anxious. I want to make you smile. I want to make you smile. I want to make you that don't make me anxious. And I was born into danger, forlorn and lost, 'cause Pops kept doing favors. Now I'm enticed by strangers who make me feel so anxious. They make me feel so anxious. They make me feel so anxious. They make me feel so anxious. And I was caught telling lies to a comrade of mine. And the tragedy of life is it's my default behavior. It's my default behavior. It's my default behavior. It's my default behavior. Your
Hello, everybody, and welcome to B-Side. I'm Greg Johnson. I'm your host for tonight, and I'm here with Bot for the next hour. Bot, it's a pleasure. Thank you for being here on B-Side.
Thank you for having us.
How would you describe Bot to somebody who doesn't know what it's about?
We are a collective headed by Dandy, and I guess what it represents for us is just kind of the darker elements of what a person who doesn't have all the resources might experience. It's kind of like a darker side of what Dandy specifically has experienced in their own life.
How does that relate to that first track you just played for us? What was the name of that one?
Bitter Dregs. It's kind of a reflection. And we write songs about reflection. And looking inward and trying to find really the truth about what's going on around us. And I think that hopefully Bot's significance will be that a story's been told about people, not only us, but other people who have experienced difficulties in their life, in their lives, that can't be answered by just your common interaction with friends, or maybe digging deeper into really difficult personal information.
And what about Bitter Dregs specifically? Like, what story does that tell? Because you can tell it's, telling a story. What sort of, truths does that explore?
Well, Dandy's life in particular has been one that's kind of been guided by false, or maybe false isn't the right word, misguided information. A lot of spirituality that I think is probably arguable, and for our songwriting and our exploration of concepts that are spiritual, we consider it very important to dig into maybe the things that people aren't really referring to so much, the darker aspects of spirituality, and finding the things that resonate with us in particular. Yeah, and I think that that's like kind of what Bot is exploring.
What resonates with you?
Spirituality-wise, yeah.
Spirituality-wise. Is there inspiration you find in living in Brooklyn for these themes that you're talking about, specifically living, here on this borough?
Living in Brooklyn, I find, is a great place for artists to live. I mean, living in Brooklyn is good because I think that there's a genuine appreciation for weirdos. And the Bot Collective is only weirdos. And I find that the people that Bot gravitates towards in terms of personnel wind up being people who can accept a person who rollerblades to get around, and does vocal warm-ups with a straw, a reusable straw.
I noticed you doing that. How does that help your vocal cords?
Well, micro vibration.
Okay.
Yeah, and just trying to do anything to loosen up the chords before playing and singing. And vibration is something that's really very important to the project, and just any way we find that we can vibrate. Resonate, I think, is another word that matches what we're trying to achieve.
I think you have a phenomenal voice. You're an outstanding musician. We're going to hear another song right now. Is that cool?
Yeah.
She dresses in her sea blues and chain smokes. When it's late, she throw on a more dark hue. It started in gold. With her smile, she'll frustrate your precepts. She is a fighter. These days, she smokes even with the fever. She don't mind the fire. And she don't carry her weight no more. Does anyone have a lighter? Yes, yes. I'm her pessimistic little baby. I'm doubting it all. Wouldn't change to save even my old lady, though she is on fire. I shield my eyes from all of her illness. She's not in full form, no. But at night she dresses in her finest. She needs fashion dire, dire. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 oh,
Now that song, is that about anything or anyone specifically?
It's about the planet. It's about Earth, referring to the Earth as a mother figure.
What's the significance to fire or smoking?
An environmental crisis. Humans managing to change the geography of the planet in the last couple hundred years specifically. And just having an obsession with ourselves and how it doesn't seem to matter that we can notice changes in the environment and continue to influence it in the same way.
So do you feel that people are too overly obsessed with themselves? They're not, noticing the earth around them enough?
I would say that it would be beneficial to us to be reflective. And that there are trends and systems in place for us to continue in the way that we have. And I personally think BOT as a collective is supposed to represent this inward looking, this honesty, and this painful honesty. And yeah, that's what the song is really trying to dig into.
Yeah, you mentioned BOT as a collective. Who are the other members of BOT?
It's a rotating cast, and it's kind of It's kind of everyone.
Is there significance to the name Bot?
One of the members referred to Bot as Band of Tomorrow, and I think that that's probably a good description.
Does Bot have like a musical spirit animal per se?
I think that Bot kind of, it represents life and intelligence. I think plant intelligence is probably one that properly represents the intelligence that I'm referring to. But really anything alive, anything that's kind of, that would, if it were aware of itself, have to process its behavior. And I think like AI is another version, which is another significant interpretation of the term bot.
I want to ask about your songwriting process. Do you start with the lyrics? Do you start with your guitar? How do these songs come to you?
The songs kind of grow, I think, out of grooves. Bass is a very significant frequency for me. And for the ensemble, it's very oriented in low rhythms. Rhythms that are contained in the lower frequencies, and just trying to accommodate bass lines, I think, is what I mostly do when it comes to the groove. And then when it comes to the lyrics, it's more well, we search for like these inward-looking concepts and try to talk realistically about them. And whatever that may look like. And you'll hear later some of the other songs, the way that looks.
So do you feel physically drawn to the low vibrations,
Yeah,
like in a physical manner?
Absolutely.
Like when did you become aware of that?
It's a thing that I've always been drawn to. And
does it mean you're averse to higher frequencies?
No. I try to play as much bass as I can, and just really sitting with the oscillation of each note and feeling it move my body has been an essential part of of my life. And I think everyone's lives, and
whether they know it or not.
Whether they know it or not, and because if you think about it, when the bass drops in a club beat,
sure,
you're waiting for it to come back. The bass drop is like, well, so the bass drop actually means, sorry.
I don't think I do know.
Yeah, well, when the bass drops is what you're looking for. So when it disappears from the track.
Right.
There's an emptiness. You're looking for orientation, and bass is orienting.
Yeah.
It gives you the place in the bar or in the cadence of the music that you're kind of like looking for to dance with, for example. If bass weren't a thing, I think that music would be much more difficult to move to.
Can you describe for maybe people that aren't aware of the experience of being moved by the vibrations, how as you work your way up through the scale, let's say, are there different specific parts of your body that you feel different notes kind of affect? Or your soul maybe?
Well, the guitar being where it is on my person, it moved me here, and kind of my core is moved by it. And I think that it's fair to say that in a large venue, when they're testing the subs or whatever, if maybe it's a club, you feel the bass. You feel the bass in your chest. I feel like maybe this is a cavity that resonates, and the bass is where it kind of finds itself in your body.
Right, like we're supposed to have chakras, right? And the different notes affect different chakras.
I would assume so.
Okay. I like it. What's the next song we're going to hear?
The next song is, I guess I'll play Morning Dance for you.
Morning Dance.
Yeah.
talk about leaving. I'm about to be piecing. I'm broken in pieces while I talk about piecing. I'm trying to get even. I've taken a beating. Don't try to make me stay. I told you 7 ways. I told you several ways. Not about to be in chains. I told you 7 ways. Yeah. This fuss is too much for a canine heart. I've fully given in to feline smart. My time's been squandered. You built my scars. There's no conspiracy. We are apart. I tell you I'm staying. It's like I didn't say shit. How else I'm gonna paint it while you're busy complaining, shaming? I'm telling you plainly, baby, no maybes. There is nothing left to say. I told you I'm gonna stay. I said it several ways. No need to feel enchained. I told you 7 ways. This fuss is too much for a feline heart. I deal with puppy love. That's all they've got. They're growing distant. They're out of sorts. They're growing distant. They're out of sorts. They're growing distant. They're out of sorts. My love is one thing they can't afford.
Wow. I love that. That was great. It's called Morning Dance. What are you singing about there?
The back and forth between 2 people, 2 animals, who can't relate to each other and misunderstand each other. And it's been an experience, I think, that as people we all share, probably as plants. There's missed physical connection. Everything kind of, there's certain dissonances that exist in the universe, and they make for learning. They make for learning experiences. They make also for really tragic misunderstanding. And
is there a way you felt misunderstood? Is that, you know, do you grow inspiration on misunderstandings in your own life?
Absolutely.
How so?
Well, it's difficult to, like I said, Bot is a collection of weirdos. And there is inherent misunderstanding in being strange, or at least eccentric, or peculiar. And if a person values the things that they think themselves, and that's paired also with peculiarity, there's enormous opportunity for misunderstanding. And being an artist can be very, very difficult, very isolating. And there's potentially so much dissonance between a person who's artistic and the rest of the world. There's also opportunity to reveal to the rest of the world what the artist is experiencing, and I think that is the value of art. And that's the value of resonance. One of my dear friend, Cal Mia Traver, who is the lead vocalist in a band called Rubble Bucket, also has a project called Cowbells. And on a tour where we were all together, we would sing spontaneously and harmonize. And I think that that's probably one of the most valuable things that a group of people can decide collectively to do together, to find where another person is at and how another person projects themselves.
Is vocal harmonization?
Vocal harmonization. Because we empathize through music. We adjust according to what other people are doing. And that's the kind of listening that I intend to do with my life. And that's the kind of listening that I hope that everybody would be willing to do in general, and empathetic listening.
Can you vocally harmonize with anyone? Like, could we do it right now? Something like that?
Yeah.
Did we do it?
Yeah. I would have liked you to sustain that note for a minute and really find with me and agree with me.
Okay.
You want to try it again?
Yeah, yeah. I like that.
We could spend more time on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe after the show.
Maybe after the show. And then you could, you know, that was almost an octave. But, you know, maybe I could sing another note on top of that. And then we just have to adjust to each other. And that's what a community is. People constantly having to adjust to one another.
I love it.
We'll work on it.
I love that. Thank you, Bot. What are we doing? I have more questions for you. You said you went on tour. I'm curious how you experienced like the dissonance that you were kind of speaking of in other places in the country versus how you experience it here in Brooklyn.
Well, depending on the town, there's potential to experience a lot of dissonance if the things there aren't done the way you expect them to be done or hope them to be done. In Boise, the Uber drivers, the car service drivers expect you to sit in the front seat with them, and that was
madness.
I wouldn't call it madness. It's just the way a different culture within the United States works.
That's fair.
Also, the car services, like the phone apps, are probably, they're introduced to each city at a different time. And probably where it's newer, the culture just it may take a while. I mean, no city is like New York in the United States. No city is like New York in the world. And so we have certain expectations of social interaction that we hope to be met. And in a place like Boise, that some of our expectations will not be met.
Let's hear some more music now. You want to play us another song, please?
I'll actually be playing 2 covers. I hope that's not a problem. The first one is a Judy Soul cover. Originally it was titled The Archetypal Man. My version is called The Archetypal Person. The Archetypal Person, sorry.
Fleeter even than Mercury, they fly inside the walls they call their own. They came hiding, but now I see they look like everyone I've ever known. Their moon mirage shine and shifting the things that they can't endure, but all through the darkness their pain, it is pure. They came bearing a sacrifice. I know them by the rose that's in their hand. I've been listening to their advice. I hear their words, but I can't understand. Came bearing a sacrifice. I know them by the rose that's in their hand. I've been listening to their advice. I hear their words, but I can't understand. Their moon mirage shine, and through their veins flows a fool's gold flood, but through the rose in their hand flows blood.
Wow. Outstanding. I love it. You said it was a cover. What drew you to that song to cover it?
I was asked to play a cover for a Judy Still tribute night. And I chose this one because I felt that it was definitely open-ended in terms of its meaning. And even more so with gender ambiguity. And that's something that I added to it because I find that there are some things that we do all experience, and it's funny, maybe songwriting for Bot kind of leans into misunderstanding because it's a theme. And my personal experience and in the experience of weirdos.
For those who aren't familiar with Judy Sill as a musician, what can you tell people about her music?
Early 70s, had a very difficult life, struggled with drug addiction, and never shook it, died very young, and just a brilliant singer-songwriter. Not very prolific, unfortunately, but yeah, that's the story. Yeah.
I feel there's a uniqueness to your music and the style of Bot. If I may, who were some of your influences? Some of your other influences? Whether it be musically or just philosophically.
I find that some of the references that Bot uses would be like contemporary gospel from the late 90s and early aughts, and by that I mean African American gospel music. And the significance of it, I think, is rhythmic for me, vocal for me, and just also the sincerity of the songs. Besides that, I like some avant-garde music. I prefer not to talk about which avant-garde music. But dissonance in finding the ways that will make dissonance palatable for people is something that is really very interesting to me.
Making dissonance palatable to people, is that a musical idea or a philosophical idea?
Well, I think that it's maybe both. You know, I struggle with things that are enormously personal, and that I feel no one can understand. And
like what?
Well, having an upbringing that I ultimately wound up disagreeing with, in terms of just the way I was handled, the way my siblings were handled. And despite that, still being able to experience love and trying to explore, you know, what consonance can be, and can consonance be found in dissonance.
You mentioned your family. Do you still have a relationship with your family?
Yes.
And how do you feel the collective of Bot kind of acts as a musical family? Like,
well, it's a place where it's possible for at least the weirdos who I include to be free. And I guess, you know, the compositions, and it does wind up being a pretty large ensemble sometimes. I've played, typically if it's a band, it's 7 pieces. And, but that's a flexible, you know, number, the number of members in an ensemble of Bot is definitely variable. But the whole idea is trying to find ways to get into the compositions that I'm reducing here, you know. These are all reductions of larger arrangements. But like trying to find an agreement where the members can be themselves within the collective, I think that's really important. So that's the feeling of family, I think.
Quick question, in that 7-piece Bot, what instruments are represented?
So there have been, usually there are 3 background vocals.
Harmony.
Sorry?
Harmony going on, right? Like we talked about, yeah.
And bass guitar, I'm playing bass usually. Drums, keys, electric guitar, and I think that's it.
Can we hear another song?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No problem.
I done spent a lot of my life on some bullshit to get my heart in line with the pulpit, but I'm of the lonely brand, and yes, the lonely can. I guess the lonely can. And I done spent a lot of my dimes on indulging with outright disregard for my conscience, but what a likely move. Yeah, what a likely move. That's just what I do, and this just what it proves. I done spent a lot of my mind in confusion over inconsistencies, over illusions, but I can't help but laugh. No, I can't help but laugh. It's the last I have. It's the last I have. I used to spend a lot of my time around a crack house with no real reason or rhyme behind my whereabouts, but I'm just a lonely kid. Yeah, I'm just a lonely kid. I couldn't tell you what I did. I couldn't tell you what I did, but I was bred and born. I'd been beaten and torn. I was lost in your scorn. Now I am pre-born. I done spent a lot of my life behind the pulpit with no real reason behind all this bullshit, but I was bred and born. I'd been beaten and torn. I was lost in your scorn. Now I am pre-born. I was bred and reared. I'd been shackled and sheared. My bleat none would hear. Understand my fear.
Wow. Excellent. These are very profound pieces, it feels like. What was that song about? Can you talk about the ideas behind those lyrics that you just sang?
I guess the upbringing that I've been referring to, the misguidedness that I'm referring to, is all to do with like spirituality and being indoctrinated into something that you don't feel fits with you. And there's a lot to be discovered in that. Because then if you opt to switch or change the way you're thinking, there's a whole realm of discovery that you need to adapt to, that you need to be able to access. And it's difficult, and there's a whole turning around that's painful in doing that. Like the deeper the indoctrination, the more shocking it is to get out of it. And I find that that is a thing that a lot of people wind up having to deal with. But if you're willing to be honest with yourself about the reality that you see, the realities of your universe, of your social circles, of your family, then there's potential for enormous growth, and you kind of get an inside look on some of the darker things that that exist in the world, and it potentially could give you beautiful perspective.
I'm curious, what brought you out of that indoctrination sort of your youth and gave you that beautiful perspective?
Well, within the indoctrination, for me, I think was a real value for truth. And I think that trying to be honest with myself personally about some of the things that I see in the world, and acknowledge their significance and their weight, I think that has been something that has been enormously transformative for me. And yeah, I'm trying constantly to be real. And I think that's, if these songs are doing anything, it's kind of like confronting painful realities.
And I think the realness is evident. You talk about BOT as one unified collective. Is there dissonance ever within the members of BOT, within the BOT collective?
Absolutely. I think that egos get involved in any ensemble, and people want to contribute what they can to the ensemble. And yeah, there will always be dissonance in any two people interacting. And I mean, there's dissonance exists on a gradient. And so within our interaction, despite it seeming all very smooth, there are moments of certain dissonance. That's what makes for conversation.
Interesting. Maybe we could hear another song. You want to? Time for one more song, I guess. But thank you for being here on B-Side. I want to say that.
Thank you for having me.
And what's the last song we're going to hear?
It's another cover. It's going to be Both Sides by Joni Mitchell.
Rows and flows of angel hair, and ice cream castles in the air, and feather canyons everywhere. I've seen clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way, yeah. trains and Ferris wheels. The dizzy dancing way you feel as all your fairy tales come real. I've seen love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave them laughing when you go, ha 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 ha. And if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. Give yourself away. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've seen life that way, yeah. But now old friends are acting strange. Yes, yeah, they shake their heads, they say I've changed. Say I've changed, but something's lost and I am drained. And living every day, living every day. I've seen clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusion. I recall I really don't know clouds at all. I've seen love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusion. I recall I really don't know love at all. I've seen life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusion. I recall I really don't know life at all. I've seen life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusion. I recall I really don't know life at all. I've seen life from both sides now. I've seen love from both sides now. I've seen clouds from both sides now. And I've seen life from both sides now. And I've seen love from both sides now. And I've seen clouds from both sides now.
Wow, it's a wonderful song, wonderful rendition. Thank you, Bot. As we wrap up, how can people experience Bot in the near future? Is there a recording session or a tour going on?
We're hoping to release a single in May, another single in June, and an EP with both of those singles on it in July.
Thank you. Is there anything else you want to say in closing?
No. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we harmonize after the show, maybe?
Absolutely.
A little more of that? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bot.
Anytime.
It's been a pleasure. Well, the sun has set on another fine B-side. It's been a treat having you here on this musical journey with the illustrious Bot. If you want to listen again, you can check out this and all past episodes at youtube.com/BRIC TV. Check it out. And you can also check out the podcast version of this show at soundcloud.com/B-side podcast. I'm your host and friend, Greg Johnson. We hope to see you again soon right here Good night, Brooklyn.